And what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of MLS History Retold with the Designated Players and MLS podcast. We're back together again, me and the Big Cone, meaning you get two. That's right, two history episodes for the price of one. First, a look back on the
The price
Portland
is
Timbers.
zero.
No, it's the price of one. A subscription, a click of the ad to get us some AdSense. Yeah, that's what you should be doing. Don't skip those ads. Watch them all, baby. First, we're going to look back on the Portland Timbers' first ever match at JELD WEN Field against the Chicago Fire for their home opening game during their MLS era. Then we get a chance to look back on one of the more memorable goals in the early days of the Philadelphia Union, courtesy of Carlos Ruiz against, once again, the Chicago Fire. Big Chicago Fire episode today. I'm Andrew, that's Connor, and this is MLS History Retold. Big Cone. What's up, dog?
What's up, cat?
This is literally, what are we? This is 48 hours of trying to get you on here to do
48
this.
hours, 15 minutes. 15 minutes.
Not going back to yesterday. Oh, I gotta eat lunch real quick. 4 hours later. Oh yeah, I forgot I was going out to lunch. My bad.
Listen, you don't understand. I went on a nice date, okay? I met a nice
Lame.
girl, went on a nice date.
Lame. This is the only thing that you need to care about, not girls. Ew.
She might fight you for that one. I don't know about that.
Well, I'm prepared to win that fight because I have all these scars behind me that will protect me from any forceful attack. I just bundle up and I'm nice and safe. So speaking of scarves, what are you rocking today?
I hate every bit of that transition. Like literally every bit of it.
That's okay. I didn't ask.
You don't have to ask. I'm here to give my opinion. And I am talking about Philly today. So we're talking about the union this time, not the goalkeeper union.
That's a nice throwback to last episode. Make sure you go check that out. Nice. I like that. I like that scarf. Do I have that one? I don't know.
Yeah, can't point at it. What now?
I've got Philly somewhere. I just don't know where it is. I've got Portland today. So breaking out the best scarf, maybe one of the best ones in the collection. Big fan of the mountains. I believe I go first here, my friend. And it's good because in an earlier episode of MLS History Retold, we talked about that ever memorable log cutting tradition in Portland. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's a tradition that stood the test of time all the way back to their MLS era. And that time had finally come because in April of 2011, it was finally time for the Portland Timbers to kick off their MLS stint at home at the newly named JELD WEN Field. Now, Connor, I could get all into the mesmerizing details of the history of JELD WEN Field, which I know you would love. We could talk about how it used to be home to various projects, including a Chinese vegetable garden in the early 1900s, or how it got into the hands of the city of Portland because the people who originally owned it wanted to make it a domed stadium, but the voters said, no way, Jose. So instead of trying to figure it out, they just sold it to the city. But I'm not going to make you sit through all of that.
Yeah, I mean, a Chinese vegetable garden is sick. I'm
That
kind of
is,
disappointed. We should honestly run it back. We'll move the stadium somewhere else. Keep the Chinese vegetable garden.
I was really like it was just a blip one one of those like Wikipedia blips like, oh yeah, it just used to be this, but no links, no thing. I'm like, give me something, man. That's crazy. We could sit through all that and spend hours talking about the history of the land, but instead let's head into the moment that really matters. It's the first ever game, right? In 2011, the Portland Timbers, they were a vibe. And one of the first teams that I actually remember in early MLS days from the West Coast. I remember when I was a kid first getting into MLS, I was always flipping between who my Western Conference team was, right? When you're a little young kid and you're like, oh well, I like two teams. I like this Eastern Conference team and the Western Conference team. And my two teams were either Seattle or Portland, which, as I know now, probably not the best way to do it, but I digress.
Wow, that is some crazy stuff. I mean, you're also a bit of a front runner too. You're just like, oh, look, exciting new thing. Let me be a fan.
Yeah. How did you get into MLS again? Remind me.
Anyway, you were saying?
The roster was great. It had guys like Kenny Cooper and Rodney Wallace, 23-year-old Diego Chara from year one. He's still going. But 23-year-old Diego Chara, 19-year-old Darlington Nagbe, a little bit of Eric Alexander, Jack Jewsbury, Sal Zizzo, Footy Danso, Stephen Keel, Troy Perkins, and my boy Jake Gleason. Those who know about my boy Jake Gleason. These are just some of the names that pop out on the screen, as well as current MLS on Apple TV commentator Ian Joy. Crazy enough. You don't know the Jake Gleason vibe, do you?
I only know Jacob Gleesnes.
Yeah, so you don't know. And
It's
he's,
close enough, right?
this is my point. You don't
Tomato,
know, but
tomato.
those who know. Okay,
And those who
um,
don't, don't.
and you do not.
I
These
do
guys
not.
came together. These guys came together, ready to take it to MLS from USL, but they were forced to start their season on the road for the first 3 weeks because JELD WEN Field was undergoing renovation, which we've seen multiple teams do already. But in the first 3 weeks, they dropped points to Colorado and Toronto before picking up their first draw of the season in a 1-1 battle against the New England Revolution. In these games, they were outscored 6-2, and while the level of travel is tough for anyone, things were about to change because on their return home, they were desperate for 3 points, and they would deliver. So let me tell you a little bit about how they prepared for their home opener because as MLS Soccer's preview of the match described it, the city was destined to provide an atmosphere evoking memories of more than 3 decades of soccer in Rose City. Head coach John Spencer acknowledged that, saying that it would be a special day, but that they couldn't get caught up in it. He said, you got to go out and you got to get your head in the game and you got to play well. And it was not just the coach and the players who knew this, but the fans did as well. After years of turmoil in the lower league, multiple hiatuses, and tons of games played in multiple different leagues, many fans were in awe that opening and kickoff in MLS was finally here. On top of that, the Timbers field staff prepared the pitch immaculately. Dennis Bishop, a season ticket holder from the USL days, said that the place looked gorgeous. It was a true soccer pitch, no holes in the grass, no pitcher's mound in the middle of the pitch, which for whatever reason in 2026 we still have to deal with. Not really, but you know what I mean. This was a level of beauty that had become a constant at Portland Timbers matches. Even to this day, it's still one of the most immaculate pitches out there. Players and media alike emphasized this, as any post talking about this game could not help but mention how beautiful the place was, a staple of positive infrastructure investment in MLS at the time. We know that in 2011, that was a big push. It wasn't just about getting teams in, but also getting soccer specific or soccer loving areas to invest in really good places. And that's what JELD WEN Field was. Even Footy Danso couldn't help but mention it, stating to the media that if you had never been here before and you saw it, you would think it's a brand new stadium, which we know it wasn't because they had renovated it from all these different places before. The power of the fans singing the national anthem in full voice, combined with the benefits of playing without travel for the first time, fans were expecting a positive result. In their pre-match predictions, fans were taking in a pre-match drink at the Bitter End pub. They all predicted that it was going to be a big win at home. Most suggested that they also would be in the top half of the table in 2011. So lots of hope going into their first season. And they also snuck in the fact that they were going to beat up on their Pacific Northwest friends in Seattle as well.
You don't got to put quotes on there. We know that they're not friends.
Well, listen, that was all the lead up to it, and that was big. But on the day of the game, it was here, and John Spector had to pick his team. And it was Jake Gleason, 19 years old, who got the nod in goal as Troy Perkins was still recovering from a knee injury. Footy Danso led a back three in front of him, with Jack Jewsbury anchoring the midfield, providing stability so that Kenny Cooper could do his thing up top. The team's only designated player this year, Diego Chara, did not make an appearance, which seems something of a foreign concept right now in 2026 when, first off, Diego Chara missing a game, period, is crazy, but playing a game without a designated player, also crazy.
I can't believe Diego Chara was a designated player.
Yeah, for like 3 or 4 years. They played against Chicago Fire, which we know. And on the other hand, they rolled out a team with a bit more firepower. This was back in the day when Sean Johnson stood tall between the sticks. As guys like,
Jeez.
yeah, Sean John, Atlanta legend Sean Johnson, by the way.
Yes, period. Yes.
Period. Oh God, you're canceled. Um, They also had guys like Jalil Anibaba and Gonzalo Cigares, who featured in the defense. Stalwart Logan Paws was ever present in the midfield, and their attack was star-studded with guys like Marco Papa, Patrick Nyarco, Diego Chavez, and Gaston Puerari. As opening night rolled around, the rain dumped it in Portland. I mean, to the point where you saw water skipping off the turf as the ball ran across it, and players who hit the ground created a splash as if they were jumping into a pool. In today's MLS, this sort of weather would have sent fans running or even abandoning the game altogether, but not tonight. After all the preparation and all the hype, all the expectation, the fans packed the stands and they sang the national anthem in full voice together as one, leading up to Ricardo Salazar blowing the opening whistle and getting the game underway for the first time in the MLS era at JELD WEN Field.
Timeout. Did you give a shout out to the ref right there?
Absolutely, King Ricardo Salazar. Listen, if I was here, I probably would have considered him for referee of the year if we were doing our podcast back then, but we
Of course you
weren't.
would.
So,
Of course you would. And you'd be wrong,
um,
like usual.
in rewatching this game, they have the full game up on MLS YouTube because it was one of those, COVID history games that they posted like once a week to keep us entertained. The only thing that I could focus on was if you look at the center line, it's not straight. It's like somebody didn't put a line down and they just kind of hand wiggled it. It is the only negative of the field, but also 2011 MLS coded, right? Outside of that small detail, you could tell that the moment was matched by the players, right? From the opening whistle, it was high energy, nonstop action. This led to a cagey affair in the first half, up until the half-hour mark when Jorge Perlaza would blow the roof off the place. After some slipping and sliding in the midfield, Portland recovered a loose ball right in the middle of the pitch. A direct pass from Khalif Al Hassan gets in behind the Chicago back line onto the foot of Jorge Perlaza. Running in behind, he dribbles into the box, cuts it back on a fake shot. Sean Johnson loses his footing, and Perlaza slots it home to give Portland the lead at home. A great start for Portland was almost met with a terrible omen, however. Some of you may remember, as we mentioned before, when a Timbers player scores a goal at home, they get a piece of the victory log. So, as expected, the camera pans over to my friend and yours, Timber Joey, expecting the Fanatics to start. But the rain falling as it was prevented the chainsaw from actually starting up. He sat there, kept revving it and revving it and revving it, and he couldn't get it to go. But the soccer gods and the timber gods were sending good vibes today because eventually that chainsaw started up and he cut the very first piece of the victory log in the MLS era.
It's a shame they were gonna have to bring out the old-fashioned manual axe if the chainsaw wasn't gonna start working. Just
Or
get
the
all the
two
subs
person
that are on the
saw,
bench.
the
Yeah,
two
yeah, yeah.
person
Just get.
saw.
I was thinking like the one you throw over your shoulder. Is just get all the guys that are sitting on the bench. Each one takes a whack at one at a time. That's your warm
That's
up.
that's one way to do it. From this point, the floodgates were open for scoring. No pun intended, of course. Just 8 minutes later, maybe the best goal of the night is scored after a horror challenge from Corey Gibbs, which only saw him earn a yellow. Which in today's game, yeah, he's gone. Portland had a free kick with which acted essentially as a corner kick. Jack Jewsbury served it in before the first ball was dealt with by the Chicago defender. The clearance fell right to Rodney Wallace, 25 yards out, who hit a screaming volley with confidence off his left boot that found its way via deflection through a crowd of players and into the back of the net. The bench went crazy, the players were elated, and the momentum fell in their favor. It would stay this way until the second half, except for a really strange moment that I swear you would only see on youth soccer fields. Right before the end of the half, a throw in was awarded to Chicago. It took some time to get him the ball, though, because a man in a button up shirt who was on the Timbers bench started to play games with Cigaris, faking giving him the ball back, then giving him, shouting at him, wagging a finger at him, doing this whole thing. Roberto Salazar stops the match and threw him out of the game. Not with a red card, but with one of those, we're not going to start play until you get away. Bye bye. See ya. And just stood there. And you actually hear him. I guess it was close enough to a boom mic to hear it, where he turned around and he goes, out. I want him out. We're not playing until he goes. The
Not my
man
ref of
was,
the year.
any guesses who this might be, by the way? just randomly out there. Obviously not names because you don't know ball, but any people like in the game.
Uh, a button-up shirt. You're talking about him, the button-up shirt guy?
Yep, yeah, yeah. Who got thrown out?
Diego Chara.
The man was later identified as former Portland GM Gavin Wilkinson. Why was he on the field? Why was he getting into cigars? These are the MLS history mysteries that the world may never know the
Ooh,
answer to.
he
Yeah,
rhymes too. The
history
history
mysteries,
mystery.
baby. That maybe we have a new title, spin-off series.
No, no. I knew you were gonna go spin-off series. You gotta no.
It was a great first half of football for Portland in their MLS era coming home. Although the vibes were flying high, they knew that Chicago was not going to lie down and take this easily. So they had to go out and build on the most dangerous lead in soccer, 2-0. And just 2 minutes into the second half, that's exactly what they did. Set pieces were the Timbers' best friend in this one. After another foul at the edge of the attacking third, Jewsbury stepped over the ball again and put it down on the ground. He played it out wide to Rodney Wallace, who whips in an innocuous ball from the left-hand side. It goes towards Sean Johnson, and there's nobody around him. But the conditions were not in his favor. Remember, it's pouring rain, it's super wet. He made a nightmare of it, fumbling the ball right onto the foot of Jorge Perlaza, the first goal scorer, who now has a brace on the day after tapping it into the empty net. 3-0 to the good. Timber Joe was getting a workout, and all was right in Portland world. However, there was still a good amount of game to go, and Chicago were finding their footing in the second half. They were creating chances and challenging Gleason's goal with corners, direct balls, the works. Things would start to get a bit dicey in the 65th minute in one of the weirdest moments you will see from this game. Chicago had possession in the middle of the park and tries to play the ball back to the feet of their midfielder, but they miss it. They miss the pass and it rolls into the box, into the back line. Portland defender Eric Brummer, trying to recover, slides in to try and clear the ball, only to scuff it and send it flying over the onrushing Jake Gleason into the goal. Absolutely absurd to concede, but that one gets the Fire back in the game, and nonetheless. The Fire sprint to get the ball back to the line and keep the momentum going because they knew with 25 minutes left, anything can happen. And if this was, and oh, I mean, if the chainsaw wasn't a bad omen, this random own goal had to not be a great one, right?
Yeah, fair enough. But you got the chainsaw working, so then you can't say it's a bad omen. It just took a little bit. Give it some
Ah,
time.
well, fast forward 15 minutes later, and the anything that can happen did in fact happen. The ball finds its way to the right side of the field outside Portland's 18-yard box. Dominic Odoro turns and plays the ball right to the foot of an unmarked Marco Papa 15 yards from goal. Probably not the best idea to leave him open in that space. He turns, gets it onto his culture left foot, and curls it up and over a fully stretched Jake Gleason to cut the lead to 1 with 10 minutes remaining. A brilliant finish that deflates the crowd in Portland, and they would be on the edge of their seats for the next 10 minutes wondering, were they really about to throw away a 3-goal lead? Of course not, Connor. That wouldn't be a good story to tell, and it wouldn't even take long to calm those nerves. An attacking corner is played into the box. It's headed back across towards a dueling Kenny Cooper and Sean Johnson. Sean Johnson goes up to try and claim it, drops it on the goal line under the challenge. A mad scramble ensues trying to force a ball over the line. Eventually, it gets put over. Footy Danso peels off claiming it, but it officially goes down as a second own goal. An own goal, if I remember correctly, this is the first time in MLS history up to this point, 2 own goals in the same half, one for each team. Very interesting. It goes against Portland's Desan Robinson, or I'm sorry, Chicago's Desan Robinson. Now, in the days of VAR, this is likely overturned for a host of different reasons, including a suspect handball on the jumping Kenny Cooper, probably a foul on the goalkeeper going up to be challenged, a whole bunch of things. But in 2011, without VAR, the goal stood and it sealed the deal for the Portland Timbers to get their first ever win in MLS and kick off the MLS era at JELD WEN Field on the correct foot. Now, fans knew what this meant in the grand scheme of the history of the club, and no weather conditions would have kept them away from this match. It was a brilliant atmosphere for a brilliant result, and the fans who were there on that day were leaving with memories that they will keep forever. And how awesome it must have been to be in that stadium. And it gets me thinking, Cone, when in the heck are we getting our DP away tours underway? Can you imagine being in the stadium at that time?
Yeah, that'd be pretty wild. But dude, I don't know what to tell you. We've had this conversation before. I'm too busy. I can't be planning flights. I can't be planning hotels and itinerary and all of this stuff. It's too much background work to do for this.
Well, do I have good news for you then, and for our listeners? Because today we have a sponsor, and it's Travel Plug, who can help you out with all those problems and more. Travel Plug specializes in planning stress-free trips and curated travel experiences, especially for groups, events, and experiences like sports travel, trips, and destination-based getaways like the first day of our away tour.
Yeah, I mean that would make it so much easier for me. I can't lie. Um, I mean, if we do that, I think it would make our trip a lot more enjoyable. And maybe there's something brewing there for an away days tour.
Listen, it definitely would. And the good news for our listeners is if they use Travel Plug to plan their next trip, they can use the code TheDPPod, no spaces, at checkout to let the company know that we sent them and show them that our listeners want to help out these local businesses, right? So use the DP Pod, THEDPPOD, at checkout so you know that we sent you.
All right, well, let's wrap up this episode so we can start planning our first stop.
Love it.
So what? The game finished 4-3, 7 goal thriller in the first game at the stadium.
Game finished 4-2 with two own goals, a screamer from distance, a ridiculously rainy day, and a packed out stadium. It doesn't get much better than that, does it?
Nah, I mean that's quite the high scoring game, but let me ask you something. You know who loves a high scoring game?
Red Bull?
No, well, maybe this year. A striker loves a high scoring game. They love to
Nice.
score goals. And let me ask you another question. Can you name for me one of the greatest strikers in MLS history? Just throw out any name.
I mean, there's so many. Tom Barlow, Omar Damari.
I really
Um,
wish I could mute you.
the list goes on. I mean, what Ashley Fletcher, legend.
So, for those that don't remember, we had an episode where we talked about top 10 strikers, and regardless of who you think number one is or who you think number two is, there's one man that is for sure on that list, and that man is Carlos Ruiz. The LA Galaxy legend has had one of the most decorated careers in MLS history, and we've covered him already so many times during this MLS History Retold segment, and we're covering him again today. However, this time we are not covering his time in Philadelphia. Sorry, in LA Galaxy. We are covering his time in Philadelphia. So today, as Andrew mentioned before, Ruiz and Philadelphia would be taking on the Chicago Fire. Again, the Fire catching another stray in this episode. I'm sorry, Chicago Fire fans. Go back to some of the earlier episodes. You had plenty to listen to. So his time, I'll talk a little bit about Carlos Ruiz's time kind of leading up to Philly, because I think everybody knows his time in LA very well. But
And if they
his
don't,
time
there
in,
it is.
we definitely have episodes, 100%. His time in Philly began after half a season in, and I'm going to butcher this, Aris, Greece, or Aries maybe, Aries,
Maurice.
Greece. I like Aris.
Yeah.
Is that a guess or is that? All right, we'll go with Aris. Aris Greece. Wow. Oh, you did it because it rhymed. You're just a rhyming guy. Aris Greece? Oh, no, I don't like that. All right, we sidetracked. But yeah, he was playing in Greece, where he was actually playing, believe it or not, in the Europa League qualifiers when he first joined the team. And I'm going to get a bit sidetracked here. All right. I could not help the Euro
Shocker.
snobism. I have to talk about this Europa League a little bit. It does involve Carlos Ruiz a bit. So it's somewhat on topic. All right. So in his first games for Aris in Greece, he was actually playing against Austria Vienna in the qualifiers, and him making an appearance in this qualifier made him the first ever Guatemalan player to play in a UEFA competition. A little bit of lore, I bet you didn't know that one.
Did not.
Um, and not only was he the first to make an appearance, but he also scored in both legs of that game against Austria Vienna, and that sent them straight into the Europa League proper. And again, this is where I'm going to get sidetracked a little bit because this Europa League was wild during the season. And I get it. This is like a different versions of these teams from where they are now, but I have to talk about it a little bit. So his team, Aris in Greece, was in a group with Rosenborg, Bayer Leverkusen, and Atletico Madrid. That is a tough group, I feel like, for this team to get out of. And they qualified for the knockouts after they beat Atletico Madrid twice during the knockout during the group stage. So not only did they beat Atletico Madrid twice and qualify for the knockouts, but the knockouts themselves stayed just as wild. So PSG in the round of 32 advanced on away goals, just scraped by against Bate Borisov. And not only that, first of all, they also got knocked out in the next round by Benfica, but that's one thing. Not only that, but Man City and Liverpool also lost in the round of 16 during this Europa League to Dynamo Kiev and Braga, respectively, not respectfully. In the semifinals for this tournament, Portugal had three of the four teams. It's wild, it's crazy. And one of those teams that actually ended up making it to the finals was Braga. Braga was in the Europa League finals in this season. So his time in Greece only lasted about half a season. And then Carlos Ruiz went on trial with Philly ahead of the 2011 season. So he was 31 at this point, and he was starting to decline a little bit. But, he still had a role to play. I mean, he's one of the greatest scorers in the league's history up to that point. And Philly saw that as well, and they picked him up and they brought him on the roster to start the season. And again, on his debut, he scores as Carlos Ruiz got the game-winning goal in the home opener of the season against Vancouver. So Ruiz was a decent addition for them, especially if you considered his recent years prior to joining Philly. He really struggled to get like consistent game time. I mean, he was bouncing around, playing a couple hundred minutes here, a couple hundred minutes there, but he was not getting consistent game time like he was in LA. And Philly seemed to be a spot where he was starting to get a bit more consistent game time. And we're going to focus on one game here in particular for his time in Philadelphia. And as I mentioned before, that's the game against Chicago Fire. So at this point, we're still pretty early in the season. It's game week 11. Philly's at Subaru Park. We're playing I don't know why I'm saying we as if I was out there. The Union, the Philadelphia Union, are taking on a dreadful Chicago Fire team. And Philly at this point was actually off to a pretty solid start to the year. They were fifth in the table when they were playing this game. And funny enough, managing Philly at the time while they were playing Chicago, any guesses?
Um,
It'd be a shot in the dark.
2011 Chicago.
2011 Philly.
2011 Philly. Mm, no, I got nothing. It's not Jim.
It's actually Chicago Fire legend Peter Novak.
I was gonna say that. Funny enough, I was going to, and I was like, I don't think so. I don't think it was that. But what do I know?
Yeah, he was funny enough coaching against his Chicago Fire on this day. So anyway, Philly starts with Ruiz up top along with Sebastian Letou taking on the likes of, as Andrew mentioned before, Marco Papa, Dom Maduro, and the Chicago Fire. And it actually took quite a while for the action to ramp up, but let me tell you, once it did, it spread like wildfire. Michael Farfan gets things started in the 64th minute off an assist by Kyle Nakazawa to score his first goal of the season and put Philly ahead. And not 5 minutes after that, and Chicago says, "We match you," with Damaduro scoring his second of the season off an assist from Gonzalo Segares to level the score at one. Then 6 minutes after that, we get to the goal that we are here to talk about today. And it was from a free kick that Ruiz took. He did not take it very well, and it got cleared away. But he's the first to get to it after the clearance. Oh, I did want to give a shout out to Andrew Das of the New York Times, who had actually, this is where I got the information that it was coming from a botched free kick that Ruiz himself then made up for. So the aftermath of the botched free kick leads to Ruiz getting to the loose ball first, but he is way outside the box. Like, I don't know. I'm terrible at guessing the numbers of how far they are out from the goal. Maybe 30, 40 yards. You could keep me honest on that one. But he picks up the ball from way outside the box. And not only that, but his first touch takes the ball way up into the air, where you think play's probably dead or Philly have to like just take it and reset and just go on the attack again. but I think you forget who we're talking about here. So Carlos Ruiz, on his weak foot, mind you, goes for the volley, which clearly nobody was ready for, including Chicago keeper John Conway, who happens to be just too far out from the goal to stop the shot going over his head and into the back of the net. Philly takes the lead, and Subaru Park goes full limbs, if I'm going to steal a line from your book. Doesn't matter if this is literally only the 11th game of the year. These fans knew that they watched likely Philadelphia's goal of the season, maybe even Major League Soccer's goal of the season. Philly would end up seeing out the result, watching them win the game 2-1. Ruiz, oddly enough, would only spend half a season in Philly before he was transferred to Veracruz in Mexico. But in his time with Philadelphia, he made 16 appearances and had 6 goals. So while he was not at his LA Galaxy best, still a fairly productive time in Philly. And as I mentioned about MLS goal of the season, shockingly enough, this was not the goal of the season. There was a actually better goal, and that was one Darlington Nagbe's volley rocket against Sporting KC. But I'm not going to go into that one because who knows, that might be an episode all in and of itself.
Well, it definitely showed up on our top 10 or best goals in MLS history mini series we did back on TikTok.
That's true.
I missed that. We should bring that back.
11 days a week.
Just 2 episodes a day. We can do 14.
Somebody save me.
What a killer goal. I did watch that back before we got in here. Oh, wow.
It
Just
it's just, it had no business being that good.
no, so fantastic. But listen, and this is what I love about this because to us, it's a goal, right? It's a good goal, but it's a goal, right? But to Philly fans who were there, that is what they remember most. That is what kept them coming back, and that is what brought them into being a fan, and that is what this is all about. So thank you for submitting that question. I really wish back when I put this together 3 years ago that I actually put the handle of the person who gave it to us, but there were 400 stories. I didn't have that much time. But for if you're listening and you submitted that, thank you because it is such a good one to look back on, including the Portland one as well. So thank you for all that. We hope you enjoyed this. We really did, and we love MLS history coming back. So make sure you're following us and interacting with us so that you know the next time we go live, so you can see the next one when it comes up. But thank you so much again. We are hoping you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.